Good afternoon and welcome again, everyone. We have a wonderful presentation and presenter here with us to go over Oklahoma gardening and how to be successful in Oklahoma with gardening. And we have Oklahoma Certified Master Gardener, Deb Cupps, here with us today. And she's going to dive into the world of gardening for us. And we are so excited that she's here and so grateful that she agreed to do this presentation for us. This is a big topic of interest for many of us, I think. Deb, we'll go ahead and let you get started.
So like Kylie said, my name is Deb. I am a certified Oklahoma Master Gardener. I'm also a certified Master Composter, and I'm the founder of Houseplant Club of OKC. So this is my favorite topic, is preparing beds in Oklahoma to be successful. One of the things I want to point out is most of these pictures come from this house, and just this last spring we downsized and we're starting all over. So we are currently building flower beds and moving plants, and we brought the raised bed vegetable gardens, this was kind of a hard summer to garden in, not much less move in the middle of it, but we did get quite a bit of vegetables. I have a Facebook page where I talk about what's beautiful today, and this would be things from our Oklahoma City Zone 7 gardens. I think we're kind of unique in that we are Zone 7, but we also are going through a drought. So it's kind of hard right now to garden successfully here. Our water bill at the new house for the last few months has been about $200, so I'm eager to see that get cut down. So join me on Facebook, and also I want to invite you to come to Houseplant Club every third Sunday at Will Rogers Gardens in the garden room, which is the little room once you walk inside the front door. We have Houseplant Club where people bring lots of gifts of cuttings and pots and plants to share. We have a great speaker on houseplants, and we have great door prizes. Those expensive plants, there are some houseplants that are $1,000, but there are quite a few that are $100 because they're rare and very much desirable. And we usually have a drawing for one of those $100 plants. So that's every third Sunday at Will Rogers, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We also have a Facebook page for that. It's called Houseplant Club of OKC. And you can certainly join us and participate in the talk on there. And we always post the events when the meetings take place. So I want to start by talking about bees, because we need pollinators. 75% of the world's flowering plants and 75% of the world's food crops depend on pollinators. And yet they're dying at a remarkable speed all around us. Just a few weeks ago, the Monarch butterfly was added to the endangered species list. This is a picture of a couple of hummingbirds that have died simply because of poor feeding. The solution wasn't clean, or it was food colored, or something happened, and the little birds get a fungus growing in their mouth that keep them from extracting their tongue, which is always sad. And then it's just sad to see a dead monarch anywhere. So who helps pollinate? Of course, the butterflies and the bees, wasps, bats, beetles, hummingbirds, and yes, even mosquitoes help pollinate. They pollinate by moving that pollen from plant to plant. We have some plants that are self-pollinators, like tomatoes, which is always nice. And then we have plants that can also pollinate in the wind. That's how corn pollinates. But most of the time we are dependent on these little insects to pollinate for us. So bees are the best pollinator. That's a picture of a bee just covered in pollen. So everywhere he goes on this set of flowers that he's on, he will be pollinating. Hummingbirds are great pollinators, followed by butterflies, moths, and skippers. Skippers are little, mostly white butterflies that you see. So we need to be kind to our earth and its pollinators. This is a plant called Tithonia, or Mexican sunflower, and it's a huge draw to all the butterflies and bees. It's just super easy. In the spring, look for a package of Tithonia seeds, and you can simply stick those seeds in the soil. These plants will grow about 3 to 4 feet high and be covered in these big orange daisy-like flowers. So it's a wonderful plant. The principles of earth-kind gardening is water conservation, reduction of fertilizers and pesticides, energy conservation, and to reduce waste to landfills. So we want to talk a little bit about low volume irrigation. And this is usually drip tape or drip irrigation versus sprinkler irrigation, or the irrigation that you see shooting up in the air. So if you can change to drip tubing, soaker hoses, those are always great. Also, when you are watering like with sprinklers from overhead and your flowers are getting wet, that's what causes powdery mildew. So you really don't want to be overhead watering anything. I usually hold off planting my zinnias a little later in the year after the spring rains have come and gone, because those spring rains with lack of ventilation will definitely cause powdery mildew on your plants. You need to audit your watering systems. We've all seen those sprinklers in the wintertime that are throwing out frozen water on the streets. We want to make sure we don't do that. And I can't begin to tell you how important mulch is here in Oklahoma. Mulch will actually keep the soil underneath a little bit cooler, a little bit wetter, and your plants are, it also suppresses weeds, and your plants are so much happier when you mulch. And when we talk about mulch, I see a lot of people just throw it out there till it covers the dirt, and that's not what you want to do. You want to put big inches of mulch, like 4 to 6 inches of mulch on your plants. See if you can do rainwater harvest. I know the city of Oklahoma City did have some cheap rain barrels for sale, but that's an excellent way. And then also using raised beds that you have control over the irrigation in them. We also need to reduce the use of fertilizers and pesticides, especially pesticides. So you can release beneficials in the garden, which we will talk about later. You need to watch runoff of fertilizers. We don't want them going down the street, down the drain, and into our lakes and ponds. That's what causes a lot of our lakes and ponds to look so gross and green, because the fertilizer's in there and it's just a nitrogen explosion. We're going to talk a little bit about integrated pest management so that you don't get alarmed and spray everything with pesticide or sprinkle everything with 7 dust just because you see a caterpillar eating away. We're going to talk about native plants, native habitats, and natural nutrients that you can use instead of fertilizers. So here's some beneficials that you can use. Ladybugs are one of the ones everybody likes, because everybody sees a ladybug in your garden and they'll, oh, there's a ladybug. Everybody loves ladybugs. And they will eat all your aphids, mealybugs, and a lot more upon their release. You can actually find these. These are a picture of 2 different types of ladybugs that I buy. The green one comes in a little net bag, and then the other one's a container. You can't find that one quite so often. But you can go into any of our nurseries like TLC and ask for ladybugs. They keep them in the fridge. So that's why you're not used to seeing them on the shelves, because they're always in the fridge. If you're going to release ladybugs, do it late in the evening after you get everything wet, because the first thing they do is they come out and get a drink, and then they're going to mate. And you really want them to mate because their immature larvae, ladybugs, look a lot different, but they eat 4 times as much as an adult ladybug. And ladybugs will really go to town on aphids. I think I might have a picture of aphids later. Predatory lacewing larvae are another great one. There's a store in Norman called Stash, and their back room is plants, and they release predatory lacewing larvae in that room, and you can actually see the little lacewing eggs hanging on their plants, which is a good thing. Praying mantis, when you see a praying mantis, just be thankful you got it, because it's going to eat larger insects. It can eat beetles. Japanese beetles are huge devourers of roses and other plants. They also eat crickets and lots of other pests. Beneficial nematoids are something you sprinkle on the ground and they actually go underground. They take care of grubs, which I know we all have problems with, and stationary insects below the ground. Just a quick word on grubs, because they're pretty gross when you're digging, like you're getting ready to put a new plant in and you're digging and you find a big white grub. Those are from June bugs that lay underneath lights in May. So if you keep your garden area dark when the June bugs are out, you can decrease your grubs naturally. They just won't be laid there. So they're looking for light to lay those eggs. Integrated pest management. I'm a big promoter of this, probably because everybody is real quick to grab a container of pesticide or 7 dust, probably because your parents did it and your grandparents did it. My gardening mentor was my grandpa, and I remember being probably 5 or 6 years old and going out and sprinkling the tomato plants with 7 dust. It's a wonder I'm alive because that stuff is very damaging to your lungs because it's a white powder. So I love talking about integrated pest management. Don't be quick to grab an insecticide. You need to know what your insect is, know your enemy, know your tolerance. I will have several white flies hovering around my cabbages and vegetables in the springtime. And until they start eating too much, I leave them alone. Know your pesticides, know which ones are specific, and know which ones are broad spectrum. One of the reasons I talk so badly about 7 dust is it is a broad spectrum and it kills 63 varieties of pests or insects. So it's killing good and bad. Treat specifically for that pest that you have identified, and treat late in the day so that all the pollinators have already gone home and gone to bed. Make sure you always store your products correctly and safely and read the labels very well. We want to reduce what's going to our landfill. If you've never seen a landfill, they are just appalling. So you want to be aware of fall practices. When you rake your leaves, use them to your benefit. Go put them in a pile somewhere and let them mold. Leaf mold is one of the best things you can add to our red clay to make it more organic, light, and better soil for our fruits and vegetables and flowers. So remember that in the fall. I sometimes drive around the neighborhood and knock on people's doors and say, can I have your bags of leaves? Because they are invaluable in my sight. And that's because I also compost. I'm a big composter. In fact, I'm a master composter. And compost just means that I have found a corner of my yard, kind of behind one of our little garden sheds where no one sees it. All my leaves, all my kitchen waste, all my vegetable waste. I currently have a zinnia bed that I wanted it to be pink and white and purple, and some yellows got in there. So I've been pulling those yellow zinnias out. They go into my compost. It's not a big fancy bin, it's just a big pile. As time goes on, I will start a new pile and let that pile degrade into compost, which is just like black gold here in Oklahoma. Mixing that into your red clay will make a world of difference. And also think about packaging before you buy. Let's try to decrease the waste going to the landfill. So real quickly, talking about monarchs, they're the only butterfly in the world that migrates. My husband and I made a trip to Dallas yesterday, and when we were coming back on the GPS, I noticed that I-35 in a section south of us had been renamed the Monarch Highway. I just thought that was great. So they are migrating. They go right down I-35 to Mexico and spend the winter there, and then they come back. It takes about 8 generations for them to make a full round trip. They have been declared on our endangered list, so we really want to watch out for them. So this is a picture of that Tithonia I talked about earlier with monarchs setting on it. Monarchs love to feed on anything that has the pollen. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but see how the pollen stands up on this Tithonia? So that's a great plant for a butterfly. A lot of flowers are cupped Like imagine an old rose is cupped, that pollen is deep inside those petals, those flower petals, and the butterflies can't get to them. So you want to watch for big open flowers like that. So here's a part of the monarch migratory path, and you can see how important I-35 is. 1/3 of the habitat for summer breeding for monarchs has been lost due to Roundup. Farmers used to till to prepare beds, but now they just round up a bed. Milkweed can survive tilling, and it even benefits from roadside mowing. So why build a monarch waystation? We're going to talk about how easy it is to do that, how to create one, how to maintain one, and how to contribute to monarch conservation. So this is my monarch garden bed. So this is a butterfly pollinator garden. And you can see I had just this little bitty bed around my mailbox, and I put a clematis there. I think that's a daylily, and there's some irises. So just this little bitty bed. And what we did to make this bed was my husband took the weed eater and scalped that. We didn't do any tilling or turning over because that destroys your soil structure. So if you can not till, that's a little bit better. Then he outlined the bed with that metal edging, and then we put down cardboard, heavy duty cardboard without any tape or no colors, bright colors on it, because those colors are usually dye. We laid down cardboard, and then that is 6 to 8 inches of compost, which is different than mulch, and then another couple of inches of mulch. So it's quite thick and heavy there. And there's that flower bed just a few months later. So it's full of, that's either fennel or deal, which is a huge feeder of caterpillars. And there is, I think right in here and over here, there is some milkweed. So this is that same bed. It's been enlarged from that original mailbox garden. It's full of things that pollinators love. And that is my certified pollinator or certified butterfly garden sign. So all you need to get a certified butterfly garden sign is you need to provide, I think I got, yeah, how to create a monarch butterfly waystation. So it doesn't really matter the size, there's no minimum, but to be truly effective and have lots of butterflies, it needs to be about 10 by 10. It could be split up and be, 2 5 by 5s. There's no upper limit, so it can be as big as you can make it. It needs to have sun 6 hours a day. And you need to have good drainage and soil type. You have to have good drainage because your roots will rot if they're setting in water, or in our case, red clay. So you always want to make sure that you've got the best soil going that you can possibly get. I probably spend more money on investing in my soil than I do in my plants. Most of my plants are coming from seeds or cuttings, which are very, very cheap. But I will spend big bucks on making sure my soil is good. So make sure you have drainage and good soil type, good drainage to avoid root rots of your plants. And again, that is monarchs on that Tithonia I was talking about. Also, you need shelter, so you put your plants relatively close together so birds can't swoop down and get those butterflies. Don't crowd, because then you'll have powdery mildew, and we talked about that earlier. It's a fungus, and it's caused by lack of ventilation and being moist. You need to have host plants of milkweed, and then new nectar plants for them to eat. So the young caterpillars love to eat stuff like dill, and of course your milkweed. And then let me back up. Monarchs only eat milkweed. The other caterpillars for the other butterflies will eat all other things like dill. Passion flower is a good one. So numerous nectar plants can be planted to feed your butterflies. In Oklahoma, we're really, really lucky. We have 66 of 77 counties that produce prolific amounts of milkweed. There are 26 varieties of native milkweed in Oklahoma, 26 varieties. The most common one, and the one that people buy to put in their butterfly gardens, is the orange one, and it's called Asclepia tuberosa. It's most common to find it at, you can even find it at Lowe's. Bastani's in Stillwater is a big seller. You can also get it in pink and rose, and there's antelope corn, which is just prolific around our roadsides out in the country. So a little bit of milkweed. This picture, you can see how short that milkweed is here. This is in a little bitty, like 6-inch or 8-inch strip between my driveway and the privacy fence next door. So it's just a little bitty strip. And I filled it full of milkweed and some other food from the butterflies, and some probably zinnias or something for them to eat and drink from, to capture the butterflies in there. And I remember going out one time, and I think it was April 10th, and I had 12 of these Monarch caterpillars on this little dab of milkweed that I had there. So nectar plants that they need bloom sequentially or continuously, and you need a mixture of perennials, which come back every year, biennials, which life cycle is 2 years, and annuals, which a life cycle is 1 year. So a life cycle goes from seed to plant to bloom, and then back to seed. That's a life cycle. So annuals will do that in 1 year. The reason we all like annuals is they bloom almost continuously for the summer. Perennials have a short bloom time, usually 2 or 3 weeks, but they'll come back year after year. And then biennials are like foxglove and hollyhock. It takes 2 years for them to complete a cycle. So how do you create a monarch waystation? You need to manage it. You need to mulch those plants, thin those plants so they don't come down with powdery mildew, amend the soil. Sometimes you need to stake plants. Of course, we talked about watering. You need to eliminate insecticides, probably the most important thing of all. So these are Oklahoma proven plants that we're going to talk about. And the goal for this was to make sure that you're successful in gardening. So this is an OSU pamphlet. It's actually kind of big, and you can go to the OSU website and buy this for $20. It's one of the best useful plant selection tools that we have here in Oklahoma. So what has happened is well over 200 horticulturists, OSU professors, master gardeners, landscapers all get together every year, and they pick a tree, a shrub, a perennial, and an annual to call Oklahoma proven. And basically, they're well-adapted plants that should lead to your gardening success and more environmentally friendly gardens. So love this book. And the rest of we're going to look at some plants that are in that Oklahoma proven book, and then we're going to look at some drought tolerant plants and some native plants. So this is kind of what I live by. Whoever said money can't buy happiness clearly has never been to a garden center. Even if I don't buy anything, I love just walking around a garden center, reading tags, knowing what plants will do well in sun and shade. Honestly, I think I've learned more just from wandering around garden centers, looking at tags, that has helped me be very successful in the gardens than any book or any magazine that I read regularly. So never hesitate to pull those tags up and read them. So Oklahoma Proven Plants started in 1999, so we have well over 20 years of selections. The plants evaluated in the marketing program is designed to help consumers select the best plant for Oklahoma gardens and gardening success. And I have to tell you, even though I longingly look at plants that grow really well in other zones and wish we had them, and sometimes I will buy them and give it a go, I think probably my best garden success is by using these Oklahoma proven plants. So we're going to talk about some, and I am sure you will agree, as you drive around the city, you see these plants and you think, oh, look how well that's doing. That's just lovely. It's probably an Oklahoma proven plant. So the first one I want to talk about is called sneezeweed or helenium. Will Rogers has a huge bank of this, and it's just lovely. It's just a little yellow mounding daisy, and it does extremely well here. When we talk about Oklahoma proven plants, there are mostly the big box stores will put out plants that are usually successful here. There are also places like our garden centers that you can go to and actually talk to somebody that can tell you, now, is that going to do well here or not? And then we have nurseries that are specific to Oklahoma plants. Prairie Wind in Edmond, not Edmond, Prairie Wind in Norman, Bastanis in Stillwater are excellent sources to get these Oklahoma proven plants. Gaillardia is not only our state flower, but it's also an excellent Oklahoma proven plant. And it's just as pretty as it can be. It's got all those reds and yellows in it. It grows about a foot tall. It tolerates our drought. Butterflies love it. The pollen sits right up on top of that cone. So it's a great plant. Don't hesitate to get that if you find it. Any zinnia does really well here because they love the heat. I usually have huge beds of zinnias because they're so easy. You literally can throw the seed on the ground and you'll have a plant in 6 weeks. You'll have a plant with a bloom in 6 weeks. So this one that is in the Oklahoma proven plant is called Zinnia augustiflora, and it's a little short one. That's this little short one down here. You know, there's also a new breed of zinnias called Oklahoma. I think it's just Oklahoma Magenta, Oklahoma White. If you can find those, they're great. I used those this year since we moved here. We've only been in this house about 6 weeks, and I've got huge beds of zinnias that come up within that 6-week time frame. The Oklahoma ones are tall. They're probably 3 or 4 foot tall. So they're in the back, and then there's some middle level zinnias, and then I got these little ones in the front. And it's a cute little bed. This is another one of my absolute favorite plants for Oklahoma, and it's called Cleome. So you can see it looks like this, and when it starts growing, when it first comes up every year, I always look at that and think, now, what is it that I'm growing? Because it suspiciously looks like marijuana to me. So this is growing in beds of peonies. So I had lots of peonies right here, and I interspersed it with this. So by the time the peonies were through blooming, this was up and just gorgeous. It comes in pinks and whites and roses. I remember my grandmother grew that. This is a plant that I grow usually in a pot, so it spills out of a pot. It's an Oklahoma proven plant. It's called Silver Falls dichondra, and it is very tolerant of our drought and can take our Oklahoma sun. This is called Starflowers or Pentas, and I buy these regularly at Lowe's. They come out midsummer, late spring, midsummer, and they just grow. They look like that all summer long. So again, highly recommended that little flower called Penta. This is in the mint family. Everything in a mint family has a square stem. So if you ever have a plant come up and you're like, what is that? Always feel its stem. If it's round, it's not in the mint family. But if it's square, it is, which will narrow down what it could be. This is called hyssop or hyssop, and it is just a prolific honeybee favorite. You will actually hear the honeybees around that. And it's a pretty plant. This is called English primrose, or this is short, kind of hugs the ground on the side of the highway. You see it a lot. It also comes in yellow. In yellow, it's called Missouri primrose. But here in Oklahoma, we have these pink ones grow along the highway. When I was just a young mother, and I've always been a gardener since I was 6 with my grandpa, so I've always gardened. But when I was just a young mother and I had 3 little kids that I was trying to take care of and also work full time, I had a little vegetable garden, and I found a package of these seeds at the grocery store, and I come home and I sprinkled that little package of seeds at the corner of my vegetable bed. The next year, the whole vegetable bed was covered in this. And the year after that, it was out of the vegetable bed and growing across the lawn. So be very careful with some of this kind of stuff like this one. These are called garden thugs because they actually act like a thug and take over your garden. This is a beautiful plant called Gara. It's about a knee-high green shrubby little plant, but the flowers are on stalks above it, so it looks like little butterflies hovering over your plant. It's really a cute little plant, does really well here. This is Salvia gregii, a great plant for Oklahoma. At the OSU Extension office where the master gardeners meet and have class, we have a big garden down there. We have a huge row of roses that we're monitoring for rosette disease, which is a horrible virus that our roses get. And this backs up all of the roses. So we have the roses in the front and then this behind it. And when that's all in bloom, that is just, it's just glorious to look at. Plus it's full of pollinators. This is another one that is a great one that you can find anywhere, and it's catmint or nepeta. So this one is one that I like called Cat's Pajamas. And I think I bought it just for its name. But it lined one of my side beds that got a little bit more shade. And then this is it, the same plant out in the sun in that pollinator garden. So another great plant. This is a plant called Celosia. It grows really easily from seed. There's a daylily. This is lamb's ear. And then Oklahoma proven plants like milkweed, which is that in the middle, and you can almost see what I was talking about. There's the edge of the driveway, and then here's the beginning of our neighbor's property with a privacy fence. So that's probably not no more than 6 or 8 inches. And it was just filled it full of milkweed and daylilies and probably threw some zinnia seeds in there. And that was its own little pollinator garden. Lots and lots and lots of caterpillars, which are great for if you have grandchildren. This is one of my favorite plants. It's called Larkspur. And actually, when you look at gardeners up east and they're growing all those beautiful delphiniums, you need to know that we can't do that here. And we just cannot do that. So sometimes this is called a redneck delphinium because we can grow these. And we can grow them and they can just, once you have them, you'll have them forever. So right now, if you want to grow these, you need to find some packets of Larkspur, put them in your fridge. And then in November and December, when we have those rainy days, even snowy days, throw that Larkspur out there where you want it to grow. It will come up in the spring. It will look like that, and you will have it forevermore because it self-seeds. But I don't think of it as a garden thug. I enjoy every one of those seeds when they sprout and come up. And then, of course, this is phlox. So you probably haven't seen that all through August. You'd be driving around town. People would have these big beds of purple phlox standing about a little over knee high. And so this is a plant that will live forever. So phlox comes in a creeping phlox, which you see in the springtime, kind of close to the ground. Comes in these tall summer phlox. And then there's a garden phlox, which is like a medium-sized plant. This is a purple coneflower, which is actually native to Oklahoma, and then breeders have picked it up and made it even better. So any of the coneflowers do really well here. There's a company called Proven Winners that has plants that they sell in white pots, and they have made several different colors of coneflower. There's some called Cherokee Sunset. I think there's another one called Choctaw something. So they named them after Oklahoma Indian tribes. And they're, instead of being purple and pink, they're orange and sunset colors. They're really pretty. I have several of those. Verbena grows really well. You have to keep it wet. So it looks really wet. It looks really wonderful in May, April and May. When it starts getting hot and dry, it looks worse and worse. So if you do buy verbena, I would recommend that you put it in a big pot so that it has lots of room for moisture, and then try to keep that moist throughout the summer so you don't lose it. This is that book. So, you know, we just hit a few of the plants that are in there, but there's over 22 trees and shrubs, annuals, perennials, ground covers. So if you want to know more about Oklahoma proven plants that will guarantee success in Oklahoma, this is the book that you want to get. Oh, maybe it's $10. That says 10 on there. Or maybe that's an old picture and it really is $20 now. But just go to the Oklahoma State site and type in Oklahoma Proven and you'll find that booklet for sale. So these are drought tolerant plants, and some of the Oklahoma Proven plants are drought tolerant, but they have a different symbol. So when we were back here, this is the symbol for Oklahoma Proven plants. And then these are drought tolerant plants. So you will see in the Oklahoma Proven Plant book, you will see these symbols. These symbols are often used by plant companies, but these are plants that will survive our droughts. They're usually native to our area. They can live for a long time in a dry period. You can use these for xeriscaping, which means dry. Uses much less water than traditional lawns, flowers, landscapes. So I know right now lantana is just all over town and looking gorgeous. So if you see a nice big bushy orange and yellow plant, it's probably lantana. Lantana comes in 2 different varieties. It comes in an annual that you're going to have to replant every year, and it comes in a perennial that will survive our winters and come back. So make sure you know which one you want and which one you're buying when you do buy lantana. This variety is called Carnival, and it is perennial. This is the one that I always grow. So it comes back every year. Eventually, it will need a huge area. It may need as much as 6 feet of width, and it gets about 4 feet high. This is snow on the mountain. I noticed when we went to Stillwater to go to Bastani's last week, it was all over the fields. So this is an Oklahoma native and it grows in our pastures. It's a pretty little plant. You can dig it up and move it into your flower beds if you want. This is another one that's very drought tolerant. This is called Yellow Bells, and it's a Texas native perennial, but we have an orange variety for Oklahoma. So there's 2 huge orange Taconas across from Uptown Grocer on May, somewhere along right in there. They're facing the road, and they're probably 8 feet tall and probably 6 or 8 feet wide. They're gorgeous, almost a tree. They're so big. Bee balm, which is really easy. You can grow this from seed. It's in the mint family. It has a square stem. Bees and butterflies love it. So it looks like this before it flowers. And then the flowers can be, there's a wide variety. The flowers can be purple. There can be 3 on a stem. This is my favorite variety. It looks like a little wild hat. So that's bee balm. Black-eyed Susans are rudbeckias. There's several different rudbeckias. Any of them will do great in Oklahoma because they absolutely love our heat and sun. So again, drought tolerant. These are also what you see on the side of the road when you're driving around. Usually the benefit to buying one is that it has been bred to be short, compact, and prolific bloomer. This is called Carolina jessamine. It's a vine. It grows up stuff. It grows up fences. I know you guys have seen trumpet vine, the orange vine that grows everywhere, will grow up any kind of fence. That's kind of an invasive plant that no one recommends you plant anymore. There's another one called crossvine. That's an Oklahoma proven plant. That's a climber. And then this Carolina jessamine, which is a climber, and it's really pretty. Yarrow is another drought tolerant plant. You see this on the side of the road. Usually in about July and August, it's white on the side of our road, but the breeders have made all different kinds of colors. Will Rogers around their entrance has huge beds of yellow yarrow, and then they grow purple flowers with it. So it's a pink, yellow, and purple bed. I actually try to grow the pink one as well. So this is called Peppermint Yarrow and Mystic Blue. And they just go well together and so easy. If you can get it established, you'll have it forever. So asters are another beautiful plant that's native to Oklahoma. You can actually drive around in the country and find big asters out there too. They're sometimes as big as shoulder high. My favorite aster is called Bluebell or Bluebell, I believe. It comes from Bostaines. It's native, and he grows it just so that he can sell it to us because it's a beautiful, beautiful plant. In fact, that's it. That's a picture of it. All these pictures are mine, except for the ones where I left the name or the picture of them. Usually I carry around pictures on my phone of things I want. And then these are actually pictures from my flowers themselves. So this aster, I had that at the old house. I drove to Bostaines last week just to get another one of these because it's beautiful. And then this is Golden Coreopsis. So this is a springtime bloomer. And it's also called tick seed coreopsis. And again, it's a native. You see it on the side of the road, a little yellow flower with a red eye. A great plant to have. And then this is lance leaf or tick seed coreopsis, and you can see the leaves on it are real different. Coral honeysuckle. I think the yellow honeysuckle that we all remember from being kids is on our Oklahoma invasive list and not recommended any longer to be planted. These coral honeysuckles, though, are also natives, and they're just beautiful, and they won't take over your whole world. This is lead plant, and it's a shrub. And this was actually one of my neighbor's houses, and their landscaper had put it in. And it's pretty. It's got great foliage. If you can see the foliage down here, it's just real pretty. Mexican hat. This is another plant that grows on the side of our road that you see in August, July and August. And then this is pin stem, and this again is one of my neighbors. I walked down to her house to take her picture of her pin stem. But this grows in the Walmart parking lot, islands. So it's anything that can grow in a parking lot island, it's got to be a tough plant. So it's going probably without a lot of water, no care probably, and surviving just fine. So that's another great Oklahoma plant. And that concludes our program. So I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions. Again, I can't impress enough upon everybody how important it is to provide for our pollinators. And I love that picture of that Tithonium with that monarch on it. So let's see what kind of questions we have.
We do have some questions that kind of started in the beginning, towards the top. I'm happy to help filter them for you so you don't have to scroll if you don't want to.
That'd be great.
Perfect. So the first one is from Morgan. If grass has grown over the mulch, should we continue to place more mulch?
No, pull that grass.
Lost my spot.
Pull that grass. And if your mulch is thick enough, there's two problems with that. First of all, we use Bermuda. And Bermuda has those huge runners that will run up and get into your mulch. As long as your mulch is real thick, it's real easy to pull. I get up every morning and walk around my flower beds and literally pull Bermuda. That's what I'm doing when I'm out walking. But if your mulch is thick enough, it's real easy to pull. You can also get these edgers that they come on a, like a whole shovel type. But the end of it is flat and round, and it's meant to go down and sever those roots around your edges. So that's a good tool to have. But the thicker your mulch is, the less grass you will have.
I think that might lead into the second question. So 4 to 6 inches of mulch as in instead of the top layer of soil, or mulch over the soil?
Mulch right over the soil, but make sure there's cardboard underneath it. The cardboard will smother the grass that's underneath there. Scalp your grass to where there's not much, then lay your cardboard and get that cardboard wet, and it will start decomposing. But while it's decomposing, it's smothering the grass underneath there. It also, the cardboard is like an attractant to worms. So you have all these worms coming. Worms will help decompose and aerate that soil that's underneath there. So you won't have that hard packed clay, red clay soil. You'll have good friable soil because the worms have been there and gone through it so much.
Thank you. When you had the ladybugs and then all the other insects that eat aphids and whatnot, which of those eats squash bugs?
Nothing eats a squash bug.
Nothing eats a squash bug. Okay.
No, that you got to pick them off and throw them in a bucket, or pick them off, put them in the freezer, and give them to a friend that has chickens. Squash bugs are the bane of Oklahoma vegetable gardens.
Another one from Samantha. How do you get rid of moles when we're talking about pests and things getting in your garden?
Bonide makes a real good product, and I think it's called mole. It has the word mole in the name of it. So Google that. I think I first found it at TLC. But you start by you sprinkle granules, and you start like in the middle of a flower bed, and it kind of pushes them out, and then you sprinkle further out, and it pushes them out, you sprinkle further out. So it's kind of a time investment to get rid of them. There are also people that will come and capture moles and gophers. There's a girl in Choctaw, she was in high school, and she started this business called the Gopher Girl or something like that. And she catches them, and then she freezes them and sends them to Montana and Wyoming, where they use them for coyote and wolf bait. And I'm telling you, the girls made this huge business out of that. I just thought that was so innovative on her part.
The next one is related to milkweed. Any cautions for milkweed interactions with pets or children?
Well, I hear a lot of concerns about any kind of poisonous flower and having pets and children. I've never been too concerned. I don't have little grandkids any longer, so I really don't have any concerns with that. And my dogs have never bothered anything poisonous. It's kind of like, monarchs eat milkweed so that they taste horrible and have a little bit of poison so that birds don't get them. So that's the whole reason why a monarch is on the milkweed. But you do need to remember that lots of plants are poisonous, including milkweeds, and you don't want to get that sap on your fingers or in your eyes. And if you have little kids that are liable to walk around and pop stuff in their mouth, you may want to not grow that till they're a little bit older. So just be cautious.
Do you have any favorite nurseries that you would recommend?
Well, I love Vastani's. He's only open twice a year. He has springtime days and fall days. We also have lots of Master Gardener plant sales. Garden clubs have plant sales. Watch Will Rogers, the Iris Club has sales. The Cactus and Succulent Society has sales. Daylily sales. So watch what's going on at Will Rogers, because lots of good sales there. And if you can buy from a person rather than a big box store, that's just a better deal. And then I do like Prairie Wind and Vastani's for native plants. And TLC gives Master Gardeners a 10% discount, so I'm there a lot too.
This is related to Larkspur. Can you throw it on the ground like zinnias, or does it need a shallow burying?
No, I throw it on the ground. In fact, what I did, it may be because it's what my grandma did, but the first snow of the year, I go throw my zinnia and nigella, which is love in a mist, and poppy seeds out on the snow. So you'd need to do that like December. And the other good time is in those cool November rainy days is a good time to throw that stuff out there. But literally nigella, zinnias, poppies, larkspur, you can literally just throw them on the ground. Now that's providing you have good ground. You wouldn't want to throw them on a bed of Bermuda.
This person's coneflowers tend to get those rusty brown spots on them. Is there a way to prevent that?
That's probably from water spotting, and then the sun actually bakes, so it's almost like a sunburn. It's usually not a fungus or a virus that you're going to have to treat, but I'd be very careful and make sure I don't get water on my leaves. And also they will turn brown from the tips if they're not getting enough water.
Okay. I feel like I have a lot of questions. I see 15 new messages, so I'm trying to get through them. I can follow up with Deb with a few of those questions that we don't get to and try to include them in the follow-up email if Deb is okay with that.
Sure.
How do you trim the perennial lantana?
Cut it off, cut it after it blooms. You know, people are always scared about pruning and cutting on a plant, but if it doesn't fit into where you want it to go, you need to go ahead and cut and prune it, and probably will not even, they probably won't even notice, the plant won't notice. But for a general rule, anything that blooms, you probably need to prune it right after it's through blooming. That way, if it blooms on old wood or new wood, it won't matter because it's already bloomed for the year and it has next year to rebound. And I think lantana blooms on new wood anyway, so just cut it after it blooms, and it's blooming now, so it'll probably be sometime in the winter or early next spring. Cut it back to the size that you want to keep it, because it will overrun an area.
Tips for planting lavender. Yep.
Lavender's hard. You need to remember it grows in the Mediterranean, so it doesn't like to be wet, likes it hot and dry. So you would think it would do really well here. And I've got several pots of lavender. Some of them survive and do fine and some don't. And I've come to the conclusion it has to do with the variety of lavender. There's a variety called Phenomenal, which does really, really well. So it's kind of hit and miss with lavender. For the most part, hot and dry, just like rosemary.
So Andrea asked, so when it goes back to mulching, so you do dirt, cardboard wet, then mulch over it.
Compost over it.
Compost, okay.
Compost is different than mulch. Compost is broken down organics that is essentially soil, good soil.
Okay.
Mulch is heavy and thick, like wood shavings and stuff like that.
Do you have any recommendations for getting rid of the Bermuda grass in order to not pull up their phlox?
You just have to literally pull it by hand. It's just a nuisance. The thing is, we use it so much because it's easy here in Oklahoma, and it can sometimes stay green if we don't have too dry of a year. Bermuda's just hard. You just have to pull it. I don't have a problem with Roundup. Now, I know if you're organic, that's a big no-no, but I don't have a problem with using Roundup specifically for problem areas. And if you're really trying to kill a patch of Bermuda, then go ahead and use Roundup. Sometimes people say it stays in the soil for years, but it actually works in like 48 hours and then it disintegrates and is gone. A lot of the organic horticulturists and professors at OSU are not opposed to using it either. I can't recall an instance where I've used it in the last few years, but I know that if Bermuda got into somewhere I wouldn't want it, I probably wouldn't hesitate to use it.
We are about 5 minutes till our stop time. I'm gonna call for all the questions. And I'll follow up with Deb with them. We have so many coming in, so many good ones that I think are valid and should be answered, but I think it might take up the rest of our time. And I want to be mindful of everyone on here, of your time and of Deb Cupps' times as well. So that way you can finish out your afternoon, get a drink, go walk, whatever you need to do. And I will be sure to follow up with Deb with the information and the questions that I see in the chat to try and help get you those answers. And maybe if she does not have that answer, she would most likely have someone or a person to refer you to.
Let me also put in a plug for the OSU Master Gardeners. We man a phone line at the OSU Extension office, and you can call anytime, send a picture, send a bug, stop by with a tree limb. We are up there in that OSU Extension office off of Portland by the health department. Not Portland, that's the old office. Off of, is it 51st, or it's over there by the new health department, over by Remington Park in that area. I should have been prepared and had that address for you. And I'll make sure Carly gets that, but
Okay.
you can always call a master gardener at the OSU Extension office. And we
Okay.
see a fair share of people bringing in bugs and baggies. So anything like that you don't have an answer to, you want to know more, just take it up there.
Well, I will go ahead and conclude. I just want to say thank you so much for your time, and especially our participants' time as well. You answered a lot of questions, and there's still some more. And I have been trying to take notes on this. And when we send that follow-up email, I will try and include as many links and things as possible that have been mentioned. Everything from I'm probably going to say it wrong, Tithonia, to the gardening club at Will Rogers, Proven Garden, the Oklahoma Proven Plants Guide, Prairie Wind Nursery, Oklahoma Hotline, the extension program number that you can call. I will be sure to follow up with everybody with that information. And again, thank you so much.